Welcome to Toxic from Reddit, where real toxic relationship stories come to life. Here you'll hear true stories from people who experience toxic relationships from different perspectives. Partners dealing with cheating, manipulation, gaslighting, red flags, and all the emotional chaos that comes with loving someone who hurts you. Stories of betrayal, of finding strength to leave, of discovering the truth, of heartbreak, of healing, and the raw reality of toxic love. This is a real story, shared anonymously on Reddit. Some details have been changed to protect the identity of the people involved. Hi everyone, my name is Jessica, I'm 29 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. And I need to tell you about the nightmare situation that has completely taken over my life and my marriage, which is that 6 months ago, my mother-in-law, Carol, moved into our house after she claimed she had nowhere else to go. And since then, she has systematically tried to replace me as the woman of the house. She's taken over all of the household duties. She's undermined my parenting of my 2 young children. She's rearranged my entire house without asking me. She's inserted herself into every aspect of my marriage. She treats me like a guest in my own home, and my husband refuses to stand up to her or ask her to leave. And now I'm at my breaking point, and I don't know how much longer I can live like this. I'm going to tell you this entire story from the beginning, because there's so much history and so many layers to this toxic situation that you need to understand. My husband's name is Michael. He's 31 years old, and we've been married for 6 years. Michael and I met when we were in college, and we fell in love quickly, and we got married 2 years after we started dating. Michael is a wonderful husband in many ways, like he's kind and supportive and hardworking, but he has one major flaw, which is that he's a complete mama's boy. Michael's father died when Michael was 15 years old, and after that, Michael became the man of the house, and he and his mother Carol became extremely close. Carol relied on Michael for everything after her husband died. Like, Michael helped her with finances, he helped her with household repairs, and he was basically her emotional support system. I understood that Michael and Carol were close, and I respected their relationship. But even when Michael and I were dating, I could see that Carol was overly dependent on Michael, and that she had trouble letting him go. When Michael and I got engaged, Carol seemed happy for us, but she also made several comments that made me uncomfortable. Like, she said things like, "I hope you'll take good care of my boy," or "Michael has very specific needs and preferences that you'll need to learn," or "I've been the woman in Michael's life for so long, it's going to be strange to hand him over to someone else." At the time, I thought Carol was just being a protective mother, and I didn't think too much about her comments. But looking back now, I can see that Carol was already establishing that she saw me as competition for Michael's attention and affection. When Michael and I got married, Carol was very involved in the wedding planning. Like, she had opinions about everything from the venue to the flowers to the menu, and she would sometimes override my decisions and make changes without asking me. Michael would always take his mother's side, and he would say things like, "My mom has good taste," or "My mom knows what she's doing," or "We should listen to my mom's advice." I felt frustrated that I wasn't being heard, but I tried to be understanding because I knew that Carol had lost her husband and that Michael was all she had. After Michael and I got married, we moved into our own house, and I thought that we would finally have some independence from Carol. But Carol was at our house constantly. Like, she would come over unannounced multiple times a week, she would stay for hours, and she would act like she owned the place. Carol would rearrange things in my house, she would criticize the way I decorated, and she would make comments about how things were done differently in her house. Carol would also cook dinner for Michael and me without asking if we wanted her to, and she would make all of Michael's favorite childhood meals. Michael loved this, and he would tell me how lucky we were to have his mom cooking for us. But I felt like Carol was overstepping boundaries, and I felt like she was trying to show me that she knew how to take care of Michael better than I did. When I tried to talk to Michael about this, he would say that I was being ungrateful, that his mom was just trying to be helpful, and that I should appreciate her efforts. I felt like I couldn't win, so I tried to just accept Carol's presence in our lives and make the best of it. 2 years into our marriage, Michael and I had our first child, a daughter named Lily, and I thought that becoming a mother would give me more authority in my own home and in my own family. But instead, Carol became even more involved in our lives, like she was at our house every single day helping with the baby, and she had very strong opinions about how I should be raising Lily. Carol would criticize my parenting choices, like she would say things like, "That's not how I did it with Michael," or "You're holding the baby too much, you're going to spoil her," or "You shouldn't be feeding her that," or "You need to let her cry it out." I tried to be polite and listen to Carol's advice, but I also wanted to parent my own child in my own way. When I would do things differently than Carol suggested, Carol would go to Michael and complain, and Michael would come to me and say that I should listen to his mother because she raised him and he turned out fine. I felt like I was being undermined as a mother, and I felt like Carol was trying to be Lily's primary caregiver instead of me. 3 years ago, Michael and I had our second child, a son named Noah, and Carol's involvement in our lives became even more intense. Carol started coming over early in the morning and staying until late at night, and she would take over all of the childcare duties. Like, she would feed the kids, she would change their diapers, she would put them down for naps, and she would play with them. I felt like I was being pushed aside as a mother, and I felt like Carol was trying to replace me. When I tried to talk to Michael about this, he said that I should be grateful for his mother's help, that raising 2 young children is hard work, and that I should appreciate that his mother was willing to help us. I tried to explain to Michael that I didn't want this much help, that I wanted to be the primary caregiver for my own children, and that I felt like his mother was overstepping boundaries. But Michael said that I was being selfish, that his mother loved our children, and just wanted to be involved in their lives, and that I should stop complaining. I felt completely unheard and unsupported by my husband, and I started to resent both Michael and Carol. About 6 months ago, Carol called Michael and told him that she was having financial problems, that she couldn't afford her rent anymore, and that she was going to be evicted from her apartment. Michael immediately told Carol that she could move in with us, and he didn't even ask me first. When Michael told me that his mother was moving in with us, I was shocked and upset, and I said that we should have discussed this together before he made the decision. Michael said that his mother had nowhere else to go, that she was family, and that of course she was going to live with us. I said that I understood that Carol needed help, but that I thought we should set some boundaries and some ground rules, and that this should be a temporary situation until Carol could get back on her feet. Michael agreed, and he said that his mother would only stay with us for a few months until she found a new job and could afford her own place again. Carol moved into our guest bedroom, and from day one, she started taking over the house. Carol would wake up early in the morning and make breakfast for everyone. She would pack Michael's lunch for work, she would do all of the laundry, she would clean the entire house, and she would cook dinner every night. At first, I thought this was Carol's way of showing appreciation for letting her stay with us, and I thought it was nice to have some help around the house. But after a few weeks, I started to realize that Carol wasn't just helping, she was taking over. Carol rearranged my kitchen without asking me, and she moved all of my dishes and utensils to different places. When I asked Carol why she had rearranged everything, she said that her way was more efficient and made more sense. Carol also rearranged my living room, and she moved furniture around and changed the decorations. When I told Carol that I liked the living room the way it was before, she said that her way looked better and more put together. Carol started doing all of the grocery shopping, and she would buy things that she liked instead of things that I normally bought for my family. When I told Carol that I had a specific way of grocery shopping and specific brands that I liked to buy, she said that her way was more economical and that I was wasting money. Carol took over all of the cooking, and she would make meals that Michael liked, but that I didn't necessarily like. When I offered to cook dinner, Carol would say that she had already started cooking and that I should just relax. Carol also took over all of the childcare. Like, she would get Lily and Noah up in the morning, she would dress them, she would feed them breakfast, she would play with them all day, and she would put them to bed at night. I felt like I was being pushed out of my own children's lives, and I felt like Carol was trying to be their mother instead of their grandmother. When I tried to do things with my own children, Carol would hover and criticize. Like, she would say things like, "That's not the right way to brush your hair," or "You're not feeding him enough," or "You need to be more patient with them." I started to feel like a guest in my own home, like I had no authority, no control, and no say in how things were done. I tried to talk to Michael about this, and I told him that his mother was overstepping boundaries and that I felt like she was trying to replace me. Michael said that I was being dramatic, that his mother was just trying to be helpful, and that I should be grateful that she was doing so much around the house. I said that I didn't want this much help, that I wanted to run my own household and raise my own children, and that I needed Michael to set boundaries with his mother. Michael said that his mother had just lost her apartment and was going through a hard time, and that I needed to be more understanding and compassionate. I felt like Michael was choosing his mother over me, and I felt completely unsupported. As the weeks went by, Carol's behavior became more and more controlling. Like, she started making decisions about my children without asking me. Like, she enrolled Lily in a dance class without consulting me, and she changed Noah's nap schedule without telling me. When I confronted Carol about these decisions, she said that she was just trying to help, and that she thought these changes would be good for the children. I told Carol that I was their mother, and that I needed to be consulted before any decisions were made about them. Carol said that she had raised Michael and that she knew what she was doing and that I should trust her judgment. I was furious. But when I told Michael about this, he said that his mother was just trying to be helpful and that I was overreacting. Carol also started inserting herself into my marriage. Like, she would give Michael advice about our relationship, and she would make comments about things that I did that she didn't approve of. Carol would say things to Michael like, "Jessica seems stressed lately. Maybe she needs to relax more." Or, "I noticed that Jessica didn't clean the bathroom today. Is she feeling okay?" Or, "Jessica seems to be on her phone a lot. Maybe she should be spending more time with the children." These comments would make Michael question me and criticize me, and we started fighting more and more. Carol would also try to come between Michael and me physically. Like if Michael and I were sitting on the couch together, Carol would come and sit between us. If Michael and I were having a conversation, Carol would interrupt and insert herself into the conversation. If Michael and I were trying to have alone time, Carol would find a reason to need Michael's help with something. I felt like Carol was deliberately trying to drive a wedge between Michael and me, and I felt like she was trying to position herself as the primary woman in Michael's life. About 3 months ago, I reached my breaking point, and I told Michael that his mother needed to move out, that this living situation was not working, and that it was destroying our marriage. Michael said that his mother still didn't have a job and couldn't afford her own place, and that we couldn't just kick her out onto the street. I said that Carol had been living with us for 3 months and that she didn't seem to be making any effort to find a job or to move out. Michael said that his mother was looking for work, but that the job market was tough, and that we needed to be patient. I said that I had been patient, but that I couldn't live like this anymore, and that Carol needed to have a timeline for moving out. Michael reluctantly agreed to talk to his mother about finding a job and moving out. But when he talked to Carol, she started crying and saying that she felt unwanted and unloved, and that she couldn't believe her own son was trying to kick her out. Michael felt terrible, and he came back to me and said that we needed to let his mother stay longer, that she was going through a hard time, and that we needed to be supportive. I was furious, and I said that Michael was choosing his mother over his wife and his marriage. Michael said that I was being unfair, that his mother was family, and that family takes care of each other. I said that I was his family too, that I was his wife, and that I should be his priority. Michael said that he shouldn't have to choose between his mother and his wife, and that I was being unreasonable for asking him to. We had a huge fight, and I ended up sleeping in our bedroom while Michael slept on the couch. The next day, Carol acted like nothing had happened, and she continued to run the household like she owned it. I started to feel completely powerless, like I had no control over my own life, my own home, or my own family. I started spending more time out of the house. Like I would take long walks, I would go to coffee shops, and I would find excuses to be away from home because I couldn't stand being there. But this made things worse, because Carol would use my absence to further insert herself into my children's lives and into Michael's life. Lily and Noah started calling Carol Mama sometimes, and when I corrected them and told them that I was Mama and Carol was Grandma, Carol would say that it was just a mistake and that the children were confused. But I felt like Carol was encouraging the children to see her as their mother, and I felt like I was losing my own children. About a month ago, I came home from running errands, and I found that Carol had completely redecorated my bedroom without asking me. Carol had changed the bedding, she had moved furniture around, and she had put up new curtains. I was furious, and I confronted Carol and asked her why she had redecorated my bedroom without my permission. Carol said that she thought the room needed a refresh and that she was just trying to make the house nicer. I told Carol that this was my bedroom, my private space, and that she had no right to come in here and change things without asking me. Carol said that she lived here too and that she should be able to contribute to making the house nice. I told Carol that this was not her house, that this was my house, and that she was a guest here. Carol started crying, and she said that I was being cruel and that she felt unwelcome. Michael came home and found Carol crying, and Carol told him that I had yelled at her and made her feel unwelcome. Michael was angry with me, and he said that I had no right to speak to his mother that way. I tried to explain to Michael what had happened, that Carol had redecorated our bedroom without asking, and that I had every right to be upset. But Michael said that his mother was just trying to be nice, and that I was being ungrateful and mean. I couldn't believe that Michael was taking his mother's side again, and I told Michael that I was done, that I couldn't live like this anymore, and that either his mother moved out or I was moving out. Michael said that I was being dramatic and that I was overreacting, and that I just needed to calm down and be more understanding. I told Michael that I had been understanding for 6 months, that I had been patient and accommodating, but that his mother had completely taken over our lives and our home, and that I couldn't take it anymore. Michael said that his mother had nowhere else to go and that we couldn't just kick her out. I said that Carol was a grown woman who was perfectly capable of getting a job and finding her own place, and that she was choosing not to because she was comfortable living with us and taking over our lives. Michael said that I was being heartless, and that he couldn't believe I would say such things about his mother. I said that I couldn't believe that Michael was choosing his mother over his wife and his marriage. We had the biggest fight we've ever had, and I told Michael that I was going to stay at a hotel for a few days because I needed space. Michael said that I was being ridiculous and that I was abandoning our family. I packed a bag and left, and I stayed at a hotel for 3 days. During those 3 days, Michael texted me and called me, but he never once said that he understood my perspective or that he would talk to his mother about moving out. Michael just kept saying that I needed to come home and that we needed to work this out as a family. I realized that Michael was never going to choose me over his mother, and that if I wanted my life back, I was going to have to take drastic action. I came home after 3 days, and I told Michael that I wanted to go to marriage counseling, and that if he refused, I was going to file for divorce. Michael was shocked, and he said that he didn't think things were that bad, and that he didn't want to get divorced. I said that things were that bad, that his mother had completely taken over our lives, and that our marriage was falling apart because of it. Michael agreed to go to marriage counseling, and we started seeing a therapist the following week. In our first session, I explained to the therapist what had been happening, how Carol had moved in 6 months ago, how she had taken over the household, how she had undermined my parenting, and how Michael refused to set boundaries with her. The therapist asked Michael for his perspective, and Michael said that his mother was just trying to be helpful, that she had nowhere else to go, and that I was being ungrateful and unsupportive. The therapist asked Michael if he understood how I was feeling, and Michael said that he understood that I was frustrated, but that he thought I was overreacting. The therapist explained to Michael that what was happening was not healthy, that Carol was overstepping boundaries, and that Michael needed to prioritize his marriage and set clear boundaries with his mother. The therapist said that it was not appropriate for Carol to take over the household, to undermine my parenting, or to insert herself into our marriage, and that Michael needed to have a conversation with Carol about expectations and boundaries. Michael seemed surprised by the therapist's assessment, and he said that he didn't realize that his mother's behavior was problematic. The therapist gave Michael homework, which was to have a conversation with Carol about setting boundaries and about creating a timeline for her to move out. Michael agreed to do this, and I felt hopeful for the first time in months. But when Michael talked to Carol, she became very upset, and she accused Michael of choosing me over her, and she said that she couldn't believe her own son was abandoning her. Carol said that she had sacrificed everything for Michael after his father died, and that this was how he was repaying her. Michael felt guilty, and he came back to me and said that he had talked to his mother, but that she was very upset, and that maybe we needed to give her more time. I was furious, and I told Michael that this was exactly the problem, that he couldn't set boundaries with his mother because he felt too guilty, and that his mother was manipulating him with guilt. Michael said that his mother wasn't manipulating him, that she was genuinely hurt, and that he didn't want to hurt her. I said that Michael was hurting me by not setting boundaries with his mother, and that he needed to decide who was more important, his mother or his wife. Michael said that he shouldn't have to choose, but the therapist had explained to us that Michael did need to choose, that his primary loyalty needed to be to his wife and his marriage, not to his mother. We went back to therapy the following week, and I told the therapist that Michael had tried to talk to Carol, but that Carol had manipulated him with guilt, and that nothing had changed. The therapist talked to Michael about enmeshment and about how his relationship with his mother was unhealthy. The therapist explained that Michael's mother had become overly dependent on him after his father died, and that Michael had taken on the role of being his mother's emotional husband instead of her son. The therapist said that this dynamic was preventing Michael from having a healthy marriage, and that Michael needed to separate from his mother and establish appropriate boundaries. Michael seemed to understand what the therapist was saying, and he said that he wanted to work on this. The therapist gave Michael more homework, which was to have another conversation with Carol, but this time to be firm and clear about boundaries and expectations. The therapist also suggested that Michael tell Carol that she needed to move out within the next 2 months, and that we would help her find a job and an apartment, but that the current living situation was not sustainable. Michael agreed to do this, and he had the conversation with Carol a few days later. Carol was very upset, and she cried and said that she felt abandoned, but Michael stood firm, and he told her that she needed to start looking for a job, and that she needed to move out within 2 months. Carol asked where she was supposed to go, and Michael said that we would help her find an affordable apartment and that we would help her with the moving costs, but that she needed to take responsibility for her own life. Since that conversation 2 weeks ago, Carol has been cold and distant with me, like she barely speaks to me, and when she does, she's passive-aggressive. Carol has also been guilt-tripping Michael constantly, like she makes comments about how she's being kicked out, and how she has nowhere to go, and how her own son doesn't love her anymore. Michael has been struggling with the guilt, but he's been trying to stay strong and maintain the boundaries that we set. Carol has started looking for jobs, but she's been very picky and has turned down several opportunities because they don't pay enough or because she doesn't like the hours. I feel like Carol is deliberately dragging her feet because she doesn't actually want to move out. and I'm worried that the 2-month deadline is going to come and go and Carol is still going to be living with us. I've told Michael that if Carol is still living with us after the 2-month deadline, that I'm going to move out and take the children with me, and that I'm going to file for separation. Michael has said that he understands, and that he's going to make sure that his mother moves out. I'm trying to be hopeful, but I'm also preparing myself for the possibility that Michael won't follow through, and that I'm going to have to leave my marriage in order to have my life back. I've been thinking about everything that's happened over the past 6 months, and I've realized that this situation has shown me a lot about my marriage and about Michael. I've realized that Michael has never fully separated from his mother, and that he's never fully committed to our marriage in the way that a husband should. I've realized that Michael has always prioritized his mother's feelings over my feelings, and that he's always expected me to accommodate his mother instead of setting boundaries with her. I've realized that I've been enabling this dynamic by being too understanding and too accommodating, and that I should have set firmer boundaries from the beginning. I've been thinking about what I want for my future, and I know that I want to be in a marriage where I'm the priority, where my feelings matter, where I have control over my own home and my own life. If Michael can't give me that, then I'm prepared to leave and start over on my own. I've been thinking about my children, and about how this situation has affected them, and I'm worried about the message that we're sending them about relationships and boundaries. I don't want Lily to grow up thinking that it's normal for a mother-in-law to take over her daughter-in-law's home, and I don't want Noah to grow up thinking that it's normal for a man to prioritize his mother over his wife. I want my children to see healthy boundaries and healthy relationships, and right now, that's not what they're seeing. I've been going to individual therapy in addition to couples therapy, and my therapist has been helping me build up my confidence and my sense of self-worth. My therapist has helped me understand that I have the right to set boundaries, that I have the right to be the woman of my own house, and that I have the right to expect my husband to support me and prioritize our marriage. My therapist has also helped me understand that if Michael can't do these things, that it's okay for me to leave the marriage, and that leaving doesn't make me a failure. It makes me someone who values herself enough to not accept an unhealthy situation. I'm still in the middle of this situation, and I don't know how it's going to end, but I'm committed to standing up for myself and for my children, and I'm committed to not accepting a life where I'm a guest in my own home. Thank you for reading my story, and if you've been through something similar, if you've had a mother-in-law who tried to take over your home, if you've had a spouse who wouldn't set boundaries with their parent, if you've felt like a guest in your own house, or if you've had to make the difficult decision to leave a marriage because of in-law problems, I would love to hear how you dealt with it and where you are now. I'm still fighting for my marriage and for my family, still hoping that Michael will follow through and that his mother will move out, but I'm also preparing myself for the possibility that I might have to leave in order to have the life that I deserve.